Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Cameron Holloway stood at the window of his corner office, watching the last rays of sunlight glint off neighboring skyscrapers. 40 stories up, the city sprawled beneath him like a circuit board, ordered, connected, and entirely under his control. Or so he had thought. He adjusted his platinum cufflinks, a gift from Vincent on the day Holloway Tech went public. The old man had been proud that day. Proud of the company Cameron had built from nothing but an idea sketched on a napkin and Vincent's initial investment. Proud of the man who had married his daughter. His phone vibrated against his desk. 3 missed calls from Vincent. Cameron frowned. The older man rarely called directly these days. His declining health had forced him to step back from the company's daily operations, leaving Noelle and her mother, Lorraine, increasingly involved. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," Cameron called, not turning from the window. "Mr. Holloway." It was Rebecca, his assistant. Her usual crisp tone carried an unusual edge. "Mrs. Holloway is here with her mother and the legal team. They've asked to meet with you immediately." Cameron checked his watch. 6:30 p.m. on a Friday. Not a standard meeting time. But then, he'd expected something like this. Just not quite so soon. "Send them in," he said, turning to face the door, his expression carefully neutral. Rebecca hesitated. "Sir, I think." "It's fine, Rebecca. I know what this is about." She nodded and disappeared, returning seconds later with a procession of people. First came Noelle, Cameron's wife of 8 years, her sleek black bob framing sharp features. Red lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Behind her walked Lorraine Lawson, his mother-in-law, her silver hair swept into a tight bun, spine straight as a ruler. Following them were 3 men in expensive suits, the company's legal team. "Cameron, darling," Noelle purred, setting her designer handbag on a chair. "Working late again?" Cameron leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "Wrapping up. What brings you all here at this hour?" Lorraine stepped forward. Unlike her daughter, she made no attempt at pleasantries. "We'll keep this brief. The board met this afternoon. Without the CEO." Cameron raised an eyebrow. "An emergency session," one of the lawyers interjected, "called by the majority shareholders." Cameron nodded slowly. The Lawson family still controlled 51% of the company's shares, a point Lorraine never let him forget. "And what was so urgent?" Cameron asked, though he already knew. Noelle stepped closer, a folder in her hand. "The company is moving in a new direction, Cameron. One that doesn't include you." She extended the folder toward him. Cameron didn't take it. After a moment, she placed it on his desk. "We're terminating your position, effective immediately," Lorraine stated, her voice cold. Cameron let the statement hang in the air. He could feel their eyes on him, waiting for shock, anger, desperate negotiation. Instead, he picked up the folder and flipped through it casually. 8 years, he finally said, looking up at Noelle. "That's how long it took you to show your true colors." Noelle's confident expression faltered slightly, but Lorraine stepped forward. "The company needs innovation, not someone resting on past achievements," she said. "You've become complacent, Cameron." Cameron closed the folder. "Is that the official reason? Complacency? We don't need lazy people like you," Noelle sneered, finding her voice again. "Holloway Tech deserves leadership that's hungry, not entitled." Cameron studied his wife's face. The woman he'd once thought he loved. The woman who now stood before him, cutting him out of his own company without a trace of remorse. "I see," he said simply. One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Your access cards and credentials have already been deactivated. Security will escort you to clear your personal items." Cameron's gaze swept over the group. "That won't be necessary." He walked around his desk, opened the bottom drawer, and removed a single framed photo of him and Vincent at the company launch. Nothing else in the office was truly personal. "That's it?" Noelle asked, her triumph tinged with confusion. "You're not going to fight this?" Cameron smiled, a slight curve of his lips that didn't warm his eyes. "What would be the point? You've always been smarter than people give you credit for," Lorraine said, her tone suggesting it wasn't a compliment. Cameron walked to the door, photo tucked under his arm. He paused at the threshold and turned back to face them. "Just one question," he said. "Did Vincent know about this?" A flicker of discomfort crossed Noel's face. "Dad's too sick to be bothered with business matters now." "I suspected as much," Cameron replied. He nodded once at the group. "Good luck with the new direction." As he walked out, Cameron heard Lorraine chuckle behind him. "Well, that was easier than expected. If only they knew." Cameron had been preparing for this moment for months. The termination letter in that folder had just set everything in motion. Vincent Lawson's estate sprawled across 3 acres of manicured lawns and gardens. The main house, a colonial revival built in the 1920s, stood like a sentinel at the end of a curved driveway. Cameron pulled his Aston Martin to a stop in front of the house and cut the engine. He'd received a text from Vincent's private nurse at dawn. "He knows. He wants to see you." When Cameron entered Vincent's study, he found the older man sitting by the window, a newspaper crumpled in his fist, his face flushed with anger. "They fired you." Vincent's voice was weaker than it had been a few months ago, but the fire in his eyes hadn't dimmed. "My own daughter and wife fired you." Cameron sat in the leather chair opposite Vincent. "Yesterday evening." "Without consulting me," Vincent growled. "In my own company." "Their company now," Cameron corrected gently. Vincent slammed his fist against the arm of his chair. "No, I stepped back temporarily, not permanently. I never intended." He broke off, coughing. Cameron poured a glass of water from the crystal decanter on the side table and handed it to him. Vincent's hand shook as he took it. "This treatment is killing me faster than the disease," Vincent muttered after taking a sip. "But that's not important now. They've made a catastrophic mistake." Cameron leaned back in his chair. They seemed confident. Confidence born of ignorance. Vincent spat. "Haven't they read the contract?" "Your contract?" Cameron met the older man's gaze steadily. "Have you?" Vincent's eyes narrowed. "What did you do, Cameron?" "What you taught me to do. I protected myself." A knock at the door interrupted them. Lorraine and Noel entered, both stopping short when they saw Cameron. "What are you doing here?" Lorraine demanded. Vincent turned to his wife and daughter, his face hard. "Trying to understand why you two have decided to destroy this family and our company in one fell swoop." Noelle stepped forward, her voice placating. "Dad, please don't overexcite yourself. The board agreed that. The board does what you tell them to." Vincent shouted, then winced, pressing a hand to his chest. "Vincent, be reasonable," Lorraine said, moving to his side. "Cameron has been." "Save it." Vincent cut her off. He pointed to the sideboard. "Bring me the company contract files. The ones for when we restructured 3 years ago." Lorraine exchanged a glance with Noel. "This isn't the time to." "Now." Vincent's voice cracked with the effort. Noel reluctantly moved to the cabinet, retrieved a thick folder, and handed it to her father. Vincent flipped through it until he found what he was looking for. He thrust the page toward his wife and daughter. "Read it," he commanded. "Page 42, Clause 16. Lorraine took the page, her eyes scanning the text. Her face paled. "What is it?" Noel asked, peering over her mother's shoulder. Cameron watched their expressions change as comprehension dawned. The slow drain of color from their faces. The widening of eyes. "This can't be legal," Lorraine whispered. "It's completely legal," Vincent said. "I helped draft it myself. A protection clause for key personnel." Noel grabbed the paper, reading frantically. "In the event that Cameron Holloway is terminated without documented cause of gross misconduct or criminal activity, all patents developed under his leadership, along with exclusive licensing rights and client contracts personally negotiated by him, revert to his personal ownership." She looked up, her face ashen. "That's almost everything valuable in the company." 68 patents, Cameron said quietly, "including our flagship technologies. 43 major client contracts with non-transferable clauses." Lorraine turned on Vincent. "How could you agree to this?" "Because I never thought you'd be stupid enough to fire him without cause." Vincent shouted, followed by another coughing fit. Noelle turned to Cameron, her shock giving way to calculation. "We can negotiate. There must be something you want." Cameron stood, straightening his jacket. "I wanted loyalty." That ship has sailed. You planned this, Lorraine accused, her voice shaking with rage. You manipulated Vincent into adding this clause. Vincent laughed bitterly. The clause was my idea. I've always known what you two are capable of. Cameron moved toward the door. I should let you have this family discussion in private. Wait, Noelle called, panic edging into her voice. What are you going to do? Cameron paused, his hand on the doorknob. I'm going to do exactly what you feared I would do when you decided to get rid of me. I'm going to build something better, without you. By Monday morning, news of Cameron's termination had spread through the business community like wildfire. He sat in his home office, watching the fallout unfold on his laptop screen. Holloway Tech stock had dropped 12% in the first hour of trading. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing with messages from industry contacts, clients, and competitors. He ignored most, responding only to a select few. The right people needed to know he was planning his next move. The wrong people needed to be kept guessing that a news alert popped up on his screen. Holloway Tech in crisis. CEO ousted, patents in question. Cameron smiled faintly. He hadn't even had to leak that information. The legal teams of Holloway Tech's clients had done their due diligence over the weekend and discovered the ownership transfer triggered by his termination. His phone rang. Noelle's face appeared on the screen. He'd been expecting this call, though he was surprised it had taken this long. He let it ring until it went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it rang again. This time it was Lorraine. Ignored it on the third call. Noelle again. He picked up but said nothing. Cameron, her voice was stripped of its usual confidence. Are you there? I'm here. His tone was neutral, businesslike. We need to talk. The words seemed to pain her. The company is in trouble. Is it? A pause. Don't play games. You've seen the stock price. The client calls. Cameron leaned back in his chair. Sounds like a management problem. This affects you too, Noelle pressed. Your name is on the building. Not for long, I imagine. Another pause, longer this time. When Noelle spoke again, her voice had softened to the tone she used when she wanted something. Can we meet? Just you and me. We can sort this out. Nothing to sort, Cameron replied evenly. The contract is clear. Contracts can be renegotiated. The desperate edge was back in her voice. Not this one. Cameron, please. This is our livelihood. It was my livelihood too, he replied. Until Friday at 6:30 p.m. I made a mistake, Noelle said, the words coming out in a rush. I listened to Mom. She convinced me. Stop. Cameron's voice hardened. You're an adult who made a decision. Own it. What do you want? She asked after a moment. Money? A position on the board. Cameron almost laughed. I want nothing from you or Holloway Tech. Then why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything, he said. Just exercising my legal rights. Rights your father made sure I had because he knew exactly what kind of people you and your mother are. The line went silent except for Noelle's breathing. When she spoke again, her voice had regained some of its coldness. This isn't over. You're right about that, Cameron agreed. It's just beginning. He ended the call and turned back to his laptop. He had a meeting to prepare for .AS predicted. By the end of the day, 3 of Holloway Tech's biggest clients had announced they were reviewing their contracts. 2 board members had resigned, and the stock had dropped another 8%. Cameron closed his laptop. Tomorrow, he would start building. But tonight, he would let Noelle and Lorraine stew in the mess they'd created. The restaurant Cameron chose for his meeting with Jonah Reyes was small, exclusive, and most importantly far from the usual business haunts where he might be recognized. Tucked away in a converted brownstone in the West Village, it offered private dining rooms and staff who valued discretion. Cameron arrived early, scanning the dining room out of habit. No familiar faces. He followed the host to a secluded alcove at the back. Jonah arrived precisely on time, his tall frame and distinctive silver-streaked dark hair drawing glances from other diners. Once a fierce competitor, Jonah had sold his tech company 3 years earlier and now moved in venture capital circles. Cameron, Jonah greeted him with a firm handshake. Quite the week you're having. Cameron motioned for him to sit. Thanks for meeting on short notice. When the golden boy of Holloway Tech gets fired and the company starts imploding, I clear my schedule. Jonah settled into his chair. Though I suspect this isn't just a social call to catch up. It's not, Cameron confirmed as a waiter appeared with a bottle of wine already decanted. Jonah raised an eyebrow at the vintage, but said nothing until they were alone again. So, Jonah took a sip of his wine. The rumors are true. Then, you're taking your patents and leaving them with nothing. The patents were always mine, Cameron said. The company had usage rights. Those rights terminated with my employment. Jonah nodded appreciatively. Clean. But what's next? You sell the patents to the highest bidder and retire to a private island. Cameron's face remained impassive, but something in his eyes made Jonah lean forward. You're building something new, Jonah guessed. But you need capital, infrastructure. I have capital, Cameron said. What I need is someone who knows how to scale fast. Someone who's done it before, who has the right connections, and isn't afraid of making enemies. Jonah sat back, studying Cameron's face. You want me as a partner. Strategic advisor, Cameron corrected. 20% equity. Jonah let out a low whistle. That's generous. Too generous. What's the catch? Holloway Tech won't go down without a fight. Noel and Lorraine will use every connection, every favor owed to try to block me. And you need someone who's already burned those bridges, Jonah concluded. Someone with nothing to lose. Cameron smiled slightly. Someone who enjoys the battle as much as the victory. Jonah took another sip of wine, considering. What's the timeline? 60 days to launch. We need to move while Holloway Tech is still reeling. Ambitious. Jonah's eyes narrowed. And vindictive. This isn't just business for you, is it? Cameron's expression hardened. Does that change your answer? Jonah laughed. Hell no. I've always said business should be personal. Otherwise, what's the point? He extended his hand across the table. I'm in. As they shook hands, Cameron felt the first real satisfaction since his termination. The pieces were coming together. Now, Jonah said, picking up his menu, let's talk about who else we need on the team while we eat. And after dinner, you can tell me just how badly you're planning to crush your ex-family. Across town, in the penthouse of one of Manhattan's most exclusive residential towers, Noelle sat across from Silas Grant, trying to keep the desperation from her voice. The situation is temporary, she insisted. A minor setback. The company's fundamentals remain strong. Silas, 50-ish, impeccably dressed, with cold eyes that reminded Noelle of a shark, seemed amused by her pitch. 30% stock drop in 3 days isn't what I'd call minor, Mrs. Holloway. Nor is losing exclusive rights to your core technology. Lorraine, sitting beside her daughter, stepped in. We've consulted with our legal team. There are ways to challenge the patent transfers. Perhaps, Silas acknowledged. But litigation takes time. Time that, frankly, your company doesn't have. Noelle's fingers tightened around her glass. That's why we need an immediate capital injection to stabilize while we fight this battle. And in return, you're offering? Silas prompted. A 20% stake, Lorraine said firmly. Silas laughed a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. For $50 million in emergency funding? No, 35%, with an option for an additional 15% at the same valuation within 6 months. That's half the company, Noelle protested. That's the reality of your situation, Silas replied calmly. Your ship is sinking, Mrs. Holloway. I'm offering a lifeboat, not at the price you want, but at the price your desperation dictates. Noelle glanced at her mother, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. We need assurances, Noelle said, turning back to Silas. That you won't try to push us out. Silas smiled thinly. Like you did to your husband. Noelle flinched. Don't worry, Silas continued. I have no interest in running Holloway Tech. I'm an investor, not an operator. As long as you can stop the bleeding and return the company to profitability, your positions are secure. It was a lie, and all three of them knew it. But Noelle and Lorraine were out of options. We'll need to review the terms with our legal team, Lorraine said. Of course. Silas stood, signaling the end of the meeting. You have until noon tomorrow. After that, I'll be exploring other opportunities. Perhaps even with your former CEO. As Silas walked away, Noelle turned to her mother, her voice a harsh whisper. 50% of the company? Dad will never approve. Your father doesn't need to approve, Lorraine replied coldly. And we're not giving Silas 50%. Not permanently. What do you mean? Lorraine's lips curved in a thin smile. We take his money, stabilize the company, then find a way to push him out. Just like we did with Cameron. Noelle stared at her mother, suddenly seeing the pattern. Is that what this is about? Moving from one man's control to another, then disposing of them when they're no longer useful. This is about survival, Lorraine snapped. Now pull yourself together. We have work to do. Vincent Lawson sat in his wheelchair in the sunroom of his estate, the morning paper spread across his lap, his face darkening as he read the business section. Holloway Tech secures investment from Grant Capital, the headline announced. Beneath it, in smaller print, Silas Grant acquires 35% stake in struggling tech giant. Vincent crumpled the paper in his fist just as Lorraine entered the room. You sold my company to Silas Grant, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Lorraine checked that they were alone before responding. We secured necessary funding to stabilize after your precious Cameron decided to destroy everything. Cameron is exercising his legal rights I insisted on because I never trusted you, Vincent shot back. And now you've handed control to a corporate raider known for stripping companies for parts. We retain majority control, Lorraine argued. Vincent laughed bitterly. For now. But we both know Grant never stops at a minority position. He'll have the rest of the company within a year. We had no choice, Lorraine said, her composure slipping. The company was hemorrhaging value. Because of your short-sighted power play. Vincent's voice rose, then broke into coughing. When he recovered, he fixed his wife with a cold stare. Where's Noelle? Too ashamed to face me. She's at the office, trying to save what you built, Lorraine replied. Unlike Cameron, who's determined to tear it all down. Vincent wheeled himself closer to his wife. Do you know why I liked Cameron from the start? Because he reminded me of myself. Driven, calculating, unwilling to lose. His eyes narrowed. And you've made him your enemy. He's just another man with an ego, Lorraine dismissed. He'll calm down, negotiate. Vincent shook his head slowly. You never understood him. And that will cost you everything. He reached for his phone and dialed. Lorraine watched, confused, until Vincent spoke. James? Vincent Lawson, I need you to come to the house immediately. It's time to revise my will. Lorraine's face drained of color. Vincent, you can't. I can and I will. He cut her off. You and Noelle have shown your true priorities. And they are not this family. You're punishing us for making a business decision, Lorraine protested. I'm holding you accountable for betraying the son I chose, Vincent replied. The son who built Holloway Tech into what it is. The son you've now forced into becoming your destroyer. Lorraine's shock gave way to anger. If you do this, there's no coming back. Good. Vincent turned his wheelchair away from her. Send Noelle my regards. Tell her I expected better from her, if not from you. Later that evening, Cameron's phone rang. Vincent's name appeared on the screen. Vincent, Cameron answered. How are you feeling? Like a fool, the older man replied. A fool who watched his wife and daughter destroy in days what took decades to build. Cameron said nothing, waiting. I've cut them out, Vincent continued. Of my will. Of my life. Cameron's grip tightened on the phone. That's extreme. No, it's overdue. Vincent's voice hardened. I should have seen who they really were years ago. What happens now? Cameron asked quietly. Now. Vincent sighed heavily. Now I watch from the sidelines. But you, Cameron, you're still in the game. I'm starting over, Cameron confirmed. New company. New direction. Good, Vincent said. But that's not enough. Cameron frowned. What do you mean? You need to finish what they started. Vincent's voice took on an intensity that belied his failing health. Fix this mess. And bury them if you must. Cameron was silent for a long moment. You're asking me to destroy your daughter? I'm asking you to do what needs to be done, Vincent replied. To show them that actions have consequences. After they hung up, Cameron stood at his window, looking out at the city lights. Vincent's words echoed in his mind. They had crossed the line first. They had made the rules of engagement clear. No mercy, no loyalty, no second chances. Cameron had been planning to focus on building his new venture. But now, with Vincent's blessing, he could pursue both paths, creation and destruction. And he knew exactly where to start. The offices Cameron had secured for his new company occupied the top floor of a sleek glass building in Tribeca. The space was still mostly empty desks waiting for employees, walls waiting for art. But the conference room was fully furnished, and that's where Cameron now sat with Jonah and their newly hired chief technology officer, Eliza Chen. "Are you sure about this?" Eliza asked, studying the documents spread before them. "Once we release these files, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure," Cameron replied. The files were financial records from Holloway Tech's new partner, Silas Grant. Records showing a pattern of questionable accounting practices, offshore accounts, and possible tax evasion. "Where did you even get these?" Jonah asked, flipping through the pages. "I have my sources," Cameron said. In truth, the information had come from a former employee of Grant's who had reached out after news of the investment broke. "And you verified their authenticity?" Eliza pressed. Cameron nodded. "Triple-checked. Every transaction is real. The timing will look suspicious," Jonah pointed out. "Everyone will assume you're behind the leak." "Let them," Cameron shrugged. "Nothing illegal about exposing financial impropriety." Eliza leaned back in her chair. "This won't just hurt Grant. It will devastate Holloway Tech by association." "That's the point," Cameron said. "Silas Grant is Holloway Tech's last hope. With him compromised, they have nothing." Jonah studied Cameron's face. "This is personal for you." "Everything in business is personal," Cameron replied, echoing Jonah's word from their first meeting. "Noel and Lorraine made it personal when they tried to throw me away like garbage." Eliza glanced between the two men. "I signed on to build something revolutionary, not to participate in a vendetta." Cameron turned to her. "We're doing both. The destruction of Holloway Tech clears the path for us. Their clients, their talent, all of it becomes available to us. And the people who lose their jobs," Eliza challenged, "the employees who had nothing to do with what happened to you, "We'll hire the best of them," Cameron said without hesitation. "Offer competitive packages, better working conditions. Salvage the worthy, discard the rest." Jonah summarized with a grim smile. "Efficient." Cameron gathered the documents and handed them to Jonah. "Get these to your contact at the Financial Times." Then to the SEC. Jonah took the files. "Consider it done." As Jonah left, Eliza remained seated, her expression troubled. "You know this makes you the villain in this story." Cameron met her gaze steadily. "Sometimes the hero and the villain are the same person, viewed from different perspectives." "And how do you view yourself?" she asked quietly. Cameron stood and walked to the window. "As someone who refuses to lose." The fallout was swift and devastating. Within days of the financial records becoming public, Silas Grant faced investigations from multiple regulatory agencies. Holloway Tech stock, already weakened, plummeted to an all-time low as investors fled. In the midst of the chaos, Cameron's phone lit up with a call from Noel. After a moment's hesitation, he answered. "Cam, please." Her voice was ragged, desperate. "Let's fix this." His response was cold, precise. "You didn't need lazy people like me, remember?" He hung up without waiting for a response. Across the city, Noelle stared at her phone, tears streaming down her face. The board had called an emergency meeting for the next morning. Silas Grant's representatives had stopped returning calls. And now Cameron, the man she discarded without a second thought, was refusing to even speak to her. She looked around her office, the place that had once represented power and success. Soon it would all be gone. And somewhere across town, Cameron was watching it burn. Cameron stood in the lobby of what had once been Holloway Tech headquarters, now buzzing with activity as workers removed the company logo from the wall. In just 6 weeks, what had once been a tech giant had crumbled to nothing. After the Grant scandal, clients had fled en masse. Key employees, sensing the end, had jumped ship, many of them recruited directly by Cameron's new venture, Ascension Technologies. Without revenues, without innovations, without leadership, Holloway Tech had been forced to file for bankruptcy. "Mr. Holloway." A voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to find a woman in a suit extending her hand. "Julia Marks, from the bankruptcy trustees. Thank you for coming in person." Cameron shook her hand. "I prefer to handle important matters face to face." "Of course. If you'll follow me." She led him to a conference room where several people sat around a table covered with documents. Cameron recognized the company's CFO, looking years older than when he'd last seen him, and two board members who had survived the exodus. As you know, Julia began, the court has approved the sale of Holloway Tech's remaining assets. Your bid was the only one that covered the outstanding debts to creditors. Cameron nodded. He'd offered exactly enough to clear the company's obligations, no more, no less. There are just a few final documents requiring signatures, she continued, sliding a folder toward him. As Cameron reviewed the papers, the CFO spoke up. You're getting a bargain, you know. Even gutted, there's still value here. Cameron looked up. I'm aware of the value. I created most of it. The man flushed but said nothing more. Cameron signed the final page and closed the folder. Is that everything? Julia nodded. Yes. Effective immediately. All remaining assets of Holloway Tech transfer to your ownership. Thank you. Cameron stood, buttoning his jacket. My team will be in touch about the transition. As he turned to leave, one of the board members called after him. Was it worth it, Cameron? Destroying everything just to own the scraps. Cameron paused at the door. I didn't destroy Holloway Tech. Noel and Lorraine did that when they decided loyalty meant nothing. He glanced back at the group. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Outside, Cameron checked his watch. His next appointment was in 30 minutes, enough time to walk the few blocks to his new offices. As he walked, his phone buzzed with a text from Jonah. It's official. Cameron typed back. Done. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, congratulations. Now what? What indeed? Cameron had achieved everything he'd set out to do. Holloway Tech was gone. Its valuable assets now belonged to him. Noel and Lorraine had lost everything: their company, their status, their wealth, that he should feel triumphant. Instead, he felt empty. The victory tasted less sweet than he'd imagined. His phone rang. Vincent. The older man's health had declined rapidly in recent weeks. It's done, Cameron said by way of greeting. I heard. Vincent's voice was weaker than the last time they'd spoken. How does it feel? Cameron hesitated. Different than I expected. Vincent's laugh turned into a cough. Revenge usually does. But it was necessary. Was it? They needed to learn, Vincent said firmly, that their actions have consequences. That loyalty matters. Cameron stopped walking, standing still on the busy sidewalk as people flowed around him. And what now? For them. Now they live with what they've done, Vincent replied. As we all must. After hanging up, Cameron continued toward his building, his thoughts troubled. He had won. Completely. So why did victory feel so hollow? Cameron sat in his new office, reviewing quarterly projections for Ascension Technologies. The company, not yet 6 months old, was already turning a profit. The technology patents he'd reclaimed from Holloway Tech had been redesigned, improved, and relaunched under the Ascension brand. Former Holloway clients had signed new contracts. The future looked promising. A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. Mr. Holloway, his assistant said, her expression uncomfortable. Noelle Lawson is here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's insistent. Cameron's surprise must have shown on his face. Should I have security escort her out? The assistant asked. After a moment's consideration, Cameron shook his head. No, send her in. Noelle entered a minute later. Cameron barely recognized her. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. Her hair had grown out, the expensive cut grown shaggy. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, both slightly worn. Cameron, she said, her voice smaller than he remembered. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. She did, her eyes taking in the office, the expansive windows, the minimalist furniture, the subtle displays of success. This is impressive, she said. I've been following your company in the news. Cameron leaned back in his chair. What do you want, Noelle? She flinched at his directness. I wanted to see you. To talk. About? Noelle looked down at her hands, twisting in her lap. I made a mistake, she whispered. I was blinded by my mother. Cameron's expression remained neutral. A mistake, he repeated. Is that what you call it? I was wrong, she pressed. About you. About everything. And now you've lost everything, Cameron observed. Tears welled in her eyes. Yes. Your father won't see me, she admitted. Won't take my calls. And your mother? She blames me, Noelle said bitterly. Says I should have handled you better. Cameron almost laughed at that. Typical Lorraine. Always someone else's fault. We're barely getting by, Noelle continued. The lawsuits took what little we had left. The house, the cars, everything gone. And now you're here, Cameron said. Why? Noelle took a deep breath. Because I have nowhere else to go. No one else to turn to. Cameron studied her, searching for the manipulation, the angle. But all he saw was desperation. What exactly are you asking for, Noelle? A chance, she said, her eyes meeting his. A job. Anything. I'll start at the bottom. Cameron leaned forward, his gaze cold. You think I would ever trust you again? I know I don't deserve it, she admitted. But I'm asking anyway. And now you have nothing, he said, echoing her earlier words. Tears streamed down her face. Can we start over? Cameron stood, walking to the window. From 40 stories up, the city looked peaceful, orderly. But he knew the chaos that churned beneath the surface. The ambition, the betrayal, the consequences. No, Noelle, he said finally, turning back to face her. You don't get a second chance. You lost the moment you betrayed me. He walked past her toward the door, signaling the end of the meeting. Cameron, please, she begged, not moving from her chair. I have nothing left. That was your choice, he said, opening the door. Now live with it. As security arrived to escort her out, Cameron returned to his desk, ignoring her continued pleas. He had shown no mercy because she had shown none to him. That was the rule she had established. The game she had chosen to play, and he had won. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across Cameron's office as Jonah entered without knocking. You look like you need a drink, Jonah observed, taking in Cameron's rigid posture as he stood at the window. Noelle came to see me, Cameron said without turning around. Jonah raised an eyebrow. Bold move. What did she want? A job. A second chance. And you said, no, Cameron replied simply. Jonah moved to stand beside him, looking out at the city. Having second thoughts? No, but the answer came too quickly to be entirely true. Jonah studied his profile. You know, revenge is a lot like a drug. The high never lasts as long as you think it will. Cameron turned to him. Is that why you agreed to help me? To witness the crash. I agreed to help you because I saw an opportunity, Jonah corrected. The revenge was just a bonus. So what now? Cameron asked, unconsciously echoing Noelle's question. Jonah smiled. Now, we build something greater, and we make sure no one ever crosses us again. Cameron nodded slowly, his resolve returning. He had won, yes, but winning wasn't enough. Now he needed to ensure it could never happen again. We expand, he decided, aggressively. New markets, new technologies. That's the Cameron I know, Jonah approved. Always looking forward. But as Jonah left to make calls, Cameron remained at the window, watching darkness fall over the city. He had everything he'd wanted. Revenge, success, powered. Oh, why did victory taste like ash? He pulled out his phone and dialed Vincent's number. It went straight to voicemail. It's Cameron, he said after the beep. It's done. All of it. You were right about them. He paused. Call me when you can. But Cameron knew Vincent might never call back. His health had been declining rapidly. Soon, Cameron would have no connection left to the Lawson family, no connection to his old life at all. Perhaps that was for the best. A clean break. A new beginning. Cameron returned to his desk and opened his laptop. There was work to do, a company to build, a legacy to create. And if sometimes in quiet moments he wondered about the cost of his victory, well, that was a small price to pay for ensuring he would never be vulnerable again. 3 months later, Cameron stood in the cemetery, watching as Vincent's casket was lowered into the ground. The funeral was small, a few business associates, some distant relatives, and Cameron himself. Noelle and Lorraine stood on the opposite side of the grave, both dressed in black, both avoiding his gaze. After the service, Cameron turned to leave, but was stopped by Vincent's lawyer. Mr. Holloway, a moment, please. There's the matter of the will. Cameron frowned. I don't expect anything. The lawyer smiled faintly. Nevertheless, Mr. Lawson was quite specific. If you could come to my office tomorrow. The next day, Cameron learned that Vincent had left him his personal art collection pieces worth millions in a letter. He waited until he was alone in his apartment to read it. Cameron, it began, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you've won. You did what I asked, perhaps more thoroughly than even I expected. You've shown my daughter and wife the cost of betrayal. You've built something new from the ashes. But now I ask one last thing of you, move forward. Not for them, for yourself. Revenge fulfilled becomes a prison of its own. Don't let it define you. Build, create, live. That's the true victory. Vincent, Cameron folded the letter and poured himself a drink. Vincent's final advice was easier said than followed. The taste of revenge might be bitter, but it was familiar now. Comfortable in its way, his phone buzzed with a notification. An employment application had been submitted to Ascension Technologies. The name on the file, Noel Lawson. Cameron opened the file, scanning the desperate attempt to reframe her meager recent job history. She and Lorraine had been forced to move to a small rental home in New Jersey. Lorraine had tried suing Cameron multiple times, but no lawyer would take her case after the first 3 were dismissed. With a few keystrokes, Cameron personally rejected the application. Then he blocked her email address from the company system. No second chances. That was the rule. Weeks later, Cameron stood on the stage at a tech conference, accepting an award for innovation. His company had grown exponentially, absorbing talent and technology from across the industry. Success had come faster than even he had anticipated. In the audience, he spotted a familiar face, Noel, wearing a server's uniform, collecting empty glasses from tables. Their eyes met briefly before she turned away, face flushed with shame. Cameron continued his speech without pause, not acknowledging her presence. But as he accepted the applause and stepped off stage, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months: satisfaction. Not just from his success, but from the knowledge that justice had been served. The last laugh was his. Forever.